Hello everyone and welcome back. As you can see, Crimson Days has come to an end and the tower has been restored back to its normal self. So in this video I'm going to show you some of the loot that I got and also give you my thoughts on the event as a whole. First up we have the Crimson Crest emblem, as you can see here in the upper corner. I'm actually pretty fond of this emblem. I really like the design and I like that it kind of makes a greater picture once you stack it with other members of your fire team. This is the emblem you get from the Crimson Days quest after completing 7 Crimson Doubles matches. It's not a very long quest, and that was actually by design, and we'll touch on that a little bit later in this video. But moving on to the first shader, we have Valentine. I like this shader for my female hunter. It has a few different shades of this rose red, but one of my favorite parts of it is actually this sort of velvety texture that it has. If we take a closer look at some of the fabric, you can see it's got a little bit of a texture as well as this neat little pattern on it. Now, we've seen a few shaders that also provide patterns like the Old Guard or Reverend, and I think it goes a long way to help you personalize your character. I'd like to see a lot more shaders in the game with patterns on them, and it might be kinda cool later in the future to have a separate pattern slot. Again, going for any way that they can help us customize our characters even more. But let's move on to the second shader in Crimson Days, which is Rosebright. Rosebright is very similar to Bone Marrow, but I think I actually prefer Bone Marrow in the long run. I like this quite a bit because it reminds me of a slice of cheesecake with like a raspberry coulis on it. So I guess if you want your Guardian to remind you of a dessert, you can go with this one. And again, taking a closer look at the fabric portions, you can see it's got the same pattern as Valentine. Overall, I really enjoy these shaders and they remind me how much better shaders have been in Year 2. Especially the SRL shaders. Now let's move on to the ghosts. The first ghost I got was the Crimson Shell. I really liked this ghost when it was first announced, and I told myself I wouldn't stop playing until I got it. Luckily, I got it within the first 15 matches, I would say. So not as bad as it's been for a lot of people. I've heard horror stories of people going over 50 matches with no ghosts whatsoever. I like this one because it reminds me of the Kingslayer shell in the sense that it has this sort of glowy cake and flame throughout it. The Crimson Shell isn't as intense as this one, but it's still pretty cool, and it also has those kind of floaty particle effects emitting from it. Again, it was a must-have for my Huntress. Next up we've got the Sugary Shell, or more affectionately known as the Chocolate Ghost. And I just love that this is in the game. It basically has a slight chocolatey texture to it, as you can see here, and of course is designed to look like a piece of chocolate. Now my question is it hollow inside, or is it solid chocolate throughout? I know I feel ripped off whenever it's hollow. What are your thoughts on hollow chocolates? Leave them in the comments below. Now, interestingly enough, it turns out during this past week, the drop rate for these ghosts have not been very good. I would say I'm lucky to get both of them within 30 matches, but not everyone has had the same experience. So much so that Bungie has actually acknowledged this as a problem and has assured everyone that as long as they play 7 Crimson Doubles matches, that you can expect a 320 ghost in your post box on February 23rd. This is pretty incredible news, and while I do have both ghost shells, none of them are at 320, so I'm very much looking forward to getting mine. Next up we have the Crimson Candy, which unfortunately has now been converted to Rotten Candy since the event is now officially over. While Crimson Candy was a pretty neat idea, I think it would have been a lot more effective if it was for armor instead of weapons. Also, I happen to still have my sugary engrams from the Festival of the Lost, which also states that it's supposed to expire at the end of the event. But I'm not sure if this is just a bug and I'm supposed to have a pile of rotten candy instead. And that sums up the loot for Crimson Days. Which brings me to my thoughts on the event itself. Now, for the most part, whenever I look at people's thoughts and views on Crimson Days, instead of actually answering that question, I usually see people say, oh, Bungie doesn't care about PvE. And of course, that may have just been the beginning of the week when we didn't know about the PvE expansions coming later this year, but it's still most of what I read online. Now, of course, I completely agree with those sentiments. This would be perfectly fine as long as it was in conjunction with some PvE events as well. But I really want to look at Crimson Days in a vacuum. And if we do so, I would say that Crimson Days has been very successful. Crimson Doubles was an absolute blast. I love the mechanics of going enraged, and I love that they follow through with the concept by having your bounty progression count for your partners. The event itself was super short and brief, and it was designed to be that way. So we had one very short one-step quest, and we had 6 bounties. And if there weren't any issues with the loot drops, I think it would have been perfectly fine as an event that only takes you about 3 to 4 hours to complete. And if you want more beyond that, you can switch to different characters or go in pursuit of that 320 ghost. I think the live team did an outstanding job with this event, and I want to see a lot more of them in the future. I think it's perfectly fine to have events of different sizes. Not everything has to be a grand event. But of course that will only work as long as we have enough content the rest of the time. Now of course this topic bleeds into my thoughts on the future of Destiny, and as I've mentioned before, I am working on a series of videos to outline the crucial changes that we need to see for the sequel, and since the sequel is now officially a real thing, you can expect those videos sooner than later. But until then, give me your thoughts on Crimson Days and Crimson Doubles in the comments below, drop a like if you can, and subscribe for more Destiny content. And I will see you all next time.
Nice work.